Welcome to the DGD podcast. As always, Robert Reynolds, Juan Daniels. You're at a specific location right now. Do you want to tell? There it is. There it is. Where are you at, Juan? As we lose him. Now Juan, Juan's at the. Oh, there we go. Bringing him back. There we go, folks. Juan, where you at, my man?
Hey, what's going on? Hey, I'm at the Georgia Elite Classic. I don't know if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, we had Rusty Manziel on, who's the 247, 24/7 recruiter, but they're having their annual Georgia Elite Classic. So I was honored to be a coach for this game, and I'll be coaching a lot of these seniors, the senior game. So that's going to be on at 12:45 on Peachtree TV, and that's going to be tomorrow. So if you get an opportunity to take an opportunity to check out these seniors. We've got some pretty good guys out here.
They getting some lessons from the goat. Sounds like. Sounds like we got
Yes, sir.
Some goat
Yes,
lessons
sir.
right here. All right, before we get started, obviously we know number 1 Georgia Bulldogs, number 4 Ohio State Buckeyes. Saturday 8. Y'all see something? The show is brought to you by Apatios Coffee or Apatios Roastery. Excuse me. Listen, alumni owned, folks. Alumni owned. And listen, if also this right here, this right here supports the Classic City Collect. 20% of every bag that you purchase through Apotheos, 20% of that goes to the Classic City Collective, and that's all 21 sports. All right, it's all 21 sports. I actually had some this morning. Boy, oh boy. Roots already bashing me about this low cost Wi-Fi. Damn. Juan's outside and doing better than me. I think that's some
Yeah,
shit.
I'm in the
But
boonies.
absolutely. So link is in the show description. But also dgdpodcast.com/ Apotheos. Go there, shop you some coffee. Now, if you use the link or go to our website, any blend of coffee that you see will be transferred over as if you were supporting the collective by buying the bag that I just showed you. So use our link, folks. Use our link, DGD Podcast for dgdpodcast.com/ Apotheos. Go there, get you some coffee. Hey, even it makes for a good gift. Also, some brigade news, Juan. We could have some breaking news today, by the way. We could have POWG. No, we will have POWG at some point today. So
My man,
we're,
elite.
we're,
That's
we're about
elite.
to we're about to gain another brigadier, if you will. So keep that in mind. So I'm sure Mr. 633 will let us know. Um, but let's do this. There's a lot to talk about. Peach Bowl. I'm super ecstatic about this. I'm sure everybody else is as well. Um, oh, wait a minute, Juan. The goat is being summoned. Confirm what exactly Ohio State is. What could this mean?
Absolute garbage. I mean,
Ooh,
they are absolute trash.
oof.
Absolute
Now
trash.
confirm why you think this.
I mean, they're overrated. They're just not. They're not a very good football team. They, struggled against a really, really bad Northwestern team. They struggled against Notre Dame. They are again. They just are you know, basically benefiting from a really soft schedule. If we're being honest, they got exposed against Michigan, and if they thought that Michigan loss was bad, I cannot wait for the opportunity to absolutely beat them down this weekend.
Now that kind of leads us into our first little portion of this show, and I think it's a good time to really break down the analytics behind both teams. Right? I think you look at the main talking points for this entire month has been, you know, Georgia's defense versus Ohio State's offense. And now listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that their receiving core is not great. It is elite. All right, like I like Marvin Harrison, but let's be honest here. Jackson Smith, and Jigba being out tremendously hurt that receiving core in regards to the depth and from a game planning perspective. Now, with that being said, they're also missing Travion Henderson. So what we should see we really don't know, right? Like we kind of know, but we don't, if you will. Um, they've got. I mean, I still think they've got some good running backs, but let's be honest. Georgia's game plan will be to force them into try to literally not run the ball, right? No success, and then force you to be one dimensional. That's Georgia's motive. Um, First off, what are your thoughts on this? In regards to this Ohio State receiving. What are your thoughts on that?
Ohio State's receiving core is pretty good. They were pretty consistent this year. I mean, even going back, to that bowl game that they played in the Rose Bowl last year against Utah. I mean, they showed up and they played up. They showed up and played big. However, I truly believe, and this is just me personally, that the Tennessee receiving core is much better than the Ohio State receiving core. And you saw what we did to them. So you can pretty much expect the same. I truly believe that Henderson Hooker is a better quarterback than CJ Stroud. I just think that offensively, Tennessee is much better than Ohio State is. It was a much better opponent. And again, you saw what we did to them. So when it actually comes to comparisons, I really truly think that Ohio State's going to get absolutely beat to sleep.
See, my thought is this: I look at Marvin Harrison Jr. and you obviously you know what you're getting with him, um, but I think Emeka Egbuka, right? That is the that is the one that I'm watching. That's the one I'm watching. You look at Ohio State. Really, I'm not saying they can't stretch the field vertically, but they're a screen team, if you will, and against screens, right? You look at guys, in the secondary, right? Javon Bullard, Chris Smith, all these guys. They're pretty sound when it comes to open field tackling in space, things like that, not missing tackles. Um, what does that receiving core have to do to threaten the Georgia secondary? To be more clear.
I mean, they're going to have to make big time plays, and I'm talking about those big time plays where you're jumping over people. They're also going to have to make these guys miss. Georgia's a great open field tackling team. They do great job tackling. They're going to have to make these guys miss, and they're going to have to make some acrobatic plays. C.J. Stroud is just going to have to play a lights out game in order for them to even have an opportunity. And the other problem is I mean that front seven getting to CJ Stroud and making him uncomfortable. I would say their only hope is just to really play some backyard football.
See, my thought is, for me, right? Like I said, because they're a screen team, right? That means that Javon Bullard's going to be, obviously on the field a lot. And with that being said, you look at a guy like Emeka Egbuka, could become a problem if Georgia isn't careful because I think you have to have Javon Bullard play exceptionally well, right? The question there lies: how does Georgia game plan, to have this situated? Because I'm not Javon is an excellent screen defender, things like that. But when it comes to one on one, no safety help over top, things like that, what does that look like, right? Like there's potential to have some problems. Could you see something where Schumann and Muschamp kind of take Malachi, right? Malachi Starks, and kind of make coverage and allow Javon to kind of like get home, if you will, kind of similar to what we did against Tennessee. Do you think there's a situation where Georgia game plans that way to utilize Javon that way?
I would 100%. Whatever it was for Tennessee that game plan is, I would do the same thing, except for the fact that Tennessee is a fast break team. They're going 50 miles an hour. They're trying to get a playoff every so many seconds. So even if you prepared to have that same mentality and prepared that same way, I think that it's going to be just complete domination for that football game.
Yeah, I think so. Rude's asked, should he become a defensive back? He's just wanting to get some one on one time with the goat. I mean, hey, so I'm looking at it. What Tennessee did, right? It's Tennessee game plan, right? I try to shy away from comparing these, even though there's some similarities. But the one thing that I think is interesting about Ohio State is C.J. Stroud doesn't really have that tendency to get out of the pocket and run. Um, and I feel like if you can get past, so Paris Johnson is a bona fide first round top 15 pick this year. I'm booking it now. The dude is a bona fide stud when it comes to the left tackle position. And you look at the offensive line for Ohio State outside of the tackles. I think there's some suspicions there, if you will. Um, so I think that you could see the interior D line have a field day potentially. Um, I just feel like the center guard combos, they're going to try to double team Jalen Carter. Honestly, though, I just don't see that working because how do you stop that, right? How do you stop and isolate Jalen Carter one on one? Finally, from a Georgia perspective, hey, push a mic in there into A gap.
Yeah.
If you get a linebacker and plug him into A gap, opening up opening up, right, Jalen Carter for isolation, right, one-on-one situations, it could be a very, very long day. We got some breaking news. We have some breaking news, Juan. I don't know if you can see this. POGG. Congratulations. If you don't know what that means, it's the excuse me. Oh man, Patrick, the original gangster grandpa at that point. So we're waiting to get confirmation of time and weight, but just letting everybody know that it is official. So the brigade has grown by one. With that being said, though, let's take some key X factors here. Juan, we'll give we'll do an offensive and a defensive X factor for both teams. Let's try this for Ohio. Excuse me, for Ohio State. Who are your X factors? Meaning, which these guys are going to have to play, be the literally could impact the determination or the determining factor of the game. This person can dictate whether or not that team wins. Who are your X factors for Ohio State?
I mean, it's going to have to be C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud's going to have to play a perfect game. I mean, he's got his work cut out for him. I mean, you can see what Georgia's done to the absolute top of the top quarterbacks. I mean, Will Levis, well, he looked really, really bad in that game that we played against him. Henderson Hooker, we just turned him into just a regular guy, and everybody else that we played all the way down the line, and it's funny too because I was looking at the 2022 top quarterbacks, and we faced a lot of them. Henderson Hooker, we faced Will Levis, we faced they have Anthony Richardson like in the top 10, which was pretty shocking. So, and you saw we play against these guys and we pretty much shut them down. So he's going to have to be the X factor. He's going to have to play above himself in order for them to have an opportunity. And then that's that. I mean, the line just kind of stops there for them offensively.
I look at it. I think from a defensive standpoint, though, Juan, who would your X factor be for Ohio State? Who the one person on their defense has got to play the game of his life, if you will?
Well, it's going to have to be one of their linebackers are going to have to play big. The defensive front is going to have to keep Georgia's line from getting to those linebackers, and then they're going to have to make plays. The defensive front, unfortunately, is pretty small. But if we can get to their linebackers, they're in trouble. But if we can't get to their linebackers, that's going to be the only way that they're going to be able to have some success.
Absolutely. So, Ruse has some questions for the GOAT. In your opinion, as an expert receiver, what makes Ohio State's receivers so good? Is it route running, catching, creating separation? What is that? And on the other side, what are their weaknesses? So give us their strengths and weaknesses. Why you think there's what makes them so good?
Well, from a strength standpoint, you take a look at Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he's a big target. He's a big target. He's physical, and he just goes up there and he makes plays. He's what you call a dog, and that's what makes those guys so good. Is he's a dog. Ibuka is just a great route runner. So if you got a guy that's a great route runner, from a timing standpoint, it makes it makes it easier for them to get to it. Weaknesses, honestly. Their weakness is going to be not having faced an SEC opponent. because you can go out there and you can play pretty well against these teams, but almost every team in the SEC has a secondary like Penn State. And if you saw that game against Penn State secondary pretty much shut them down. They were more physical. They were dominant over them, and they were, just kind of all up in their face. So that's going to be a weakness, is, just that aggressive physicality. It really takes a toll on them.
I'm looking at it this way, right? I think when you talked about physicality, right? Like, my question is, does a skill position, right, players there, do they experience a lot of physicality in general, right? There's questions about that. But I think on their offensive line, I have a feeling, excuse me, after the Michigan game, yeah, after the Michigan game, I guarantee you they got man checked, if you will.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But from a formula standpoint, again, you want to have that same formula that you had versus Tennessee, but then also defensively, you also want to take a look at what Penn State was able to do with Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State breaks away at the end, but Penn State really, I mean, probably have one of the top secondaries in the nation, but they really, really gave those receivers fits.
Going back on it, ain't that the game where they won by 13, but it was like a last minute, like
Yep.
garbage time touchdown to
Yep.
bring it from 7 to 13 or something
Yes,
like
it
that?
was. Yes, it was.
I mean, they the thing is they've played some close games, right? Like, but at the same time, like I feel like Ohio State. You mentioned the schedule, things like that, but like I feel like their receiving core is just so good. You're almost looking at a situation where you're going to give up. One can expect to give up about 21 points at least, maybe. I don't know, 3 touchdowns potentially. Now, at the same time, like Georgia, I feel like the media has been blowing this way the hell out of proportion. The LSU game, right? You sit there, you watch them throw for 500 yards on us, right? But the thing about it is, if you go back and watch that game, you'll see that there was super soft coverage. They were playing 12 yards off the ball. What do you expect?
Yeah.
Which kind of leads me into another thing. This is why yards don't necessarily matter, because when you watch Georgia's game plan, right, Juan, against LSU, they let them take whatever they wanted up until about the red zone, right? And then what happened?
Yep.
Stalled out
They shut them down. Yeah.
stalled out field goal, if that, right?
the
Their
game the
only
game the game was out of hand as well. So you never really look at those stats and think, oh well, Georgia's secondary is that bad, or again, you take a look at the game against Kentucky. Kentucky is a very, very good football team. They've got great receivers, great running game, and they have a top 5 quarterback. And the same thing with Henderson Hooker and Tennessee. I mean, they were, compared to that 2019 LSU team until they ran into Georgia. And then, of course, they looked mediocre.
I'm looking at it too, though. Like, I think one of the things is, from Ohio State perspective, not having Travion Henderson, right? I think the big thing is, how are they going to handle in the running game? Like, to do this, you have to be successful to get Georgia to allocate more resources into the box, right? Once you get Georgia to get 7 in the box and force Georgia's defense to push more resources in, that really pushes and stresses the secondary, right?
Yeah.
If Georgia, can play 5, 6 guys, win a line of scrimmage, right, and stop the run with 5 or 6, it's going to be an extremely long day.
Yeah.
Extremely long day
Yeah.
because
Oh, I was talking about, I wasn't talking about Henderson, the running back. I was talking about Henderson Hooker, what
yeah,
we were able
it's
to
Hendon
do.
Hooker. It's Hendon Hooker.
Oh, Hendon. Yeah. Oh, okay. My bad.
Oh man, it's okay.
Hendon
You're
Hooker.
busy.
All
You're a
right. Well,
busy
there
man.
you go.
You're a busy man. You're a busy man. We'll let it slide. You're goaded. We'll have to let it slide anyway.
I
But no,
appreciate it.
so
Good looking out.
I mean, you said it multiple times before, but neither here nor there. But no, I think when you look at it though, a lot of the times, like Ohio State's offense, excuse me, run the ball on first down to set up second, third, and manageables. Excuse me, set up the run to get and to take shots, if you will, on second and third down, making for third manageable situations. If Georgia could put you behind the chains on that situation, that's another thing that you're allowing Georgia's pass rushers to tee off. Add in the fact that you don't really see C.J. Stroud run like that. That right there has a recipe for disaster if you don't get the run game going. But let's flip it around. Georgia's predicated to run the ball, right? And Ohio State, we talked about this while we analyzed the defense a while back. Their pass rushers are like they have some really good damn pass rushers, but the thing is, they give up lanes in the running game because of their tendency to rush the passer, right? With that being said, I think you see, I don't know, I would say probably a counter. Try to beat that, maybe some counter, I guess. Georgia's been a counter heavy team anyway, right? If you did that or some, I don't know if you stretch them, maybe do some stretch zone, but inside zones. But if you get those guys and steal those edge rushers off, I don't trust their D line, their linebackers, gains, things like that. If you try to stretch them outside zone, you might get caught with some speed. But I think you see Georgia play a physical style running attack here. Like I said, counter is one of the most physical ones you can see. So if Georgia's running a counter style offense in the run game for 4 quarters, try stopping that. It's going to be hell for those defenders. And I just think that it will. But it'll also be rough on those linebackers. If you watch the Michigan game, they sold their soul to stop Michigan's run game. Even 8, 9 people in the box. I don't see that being a key to victory for Ohio State, but just because if you put if you stack the box that much, all you have to do is slip Brock Bowers out and it's a wrap. Because now your linebacker's put in a compromised situation where you can see him hit the field, maybe hit the seam. Think about that. When you have everybody pushed in so close to the line of scrimmage, it opens up the field. So if you're playing cover zero because you're trying to engage eight, if you will, deep shots are going to be there. Empty, like the back of the field could be wide ass open. And I know Todd Munkin will sit there and utilize that and hit shit all day long if they want to do that. What are your thoughts about Georgia's running game and offensive attack?
Oh yeah, I mean it's crazy to think about Ohio State having such a great pass rush playing in the Big Ten because that's all they do is run the ball, run the ball, run the ball in the Big Ten. But again, they're undersized on their front, and so just look for Georgia just to run the ball down their throats. I mean, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad, and then that play action is going to be 10 times worse. There is going to be, going to be guys that are going to be wide open. There's nothing that they can do with Brock Bowers, nothing they can do with, Darnell. And then, of course, you got your backs running out of the backfield as well. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough sledding.
See, my thoughts with the passing game. When you look at their DBs, right? And their linebackers, they're kind of smaller. They're not as thick as you would see like what you see in Georgia. Does that mean, from a receiver standpoint, things like that? Do you see outside screens, in this, or do you see like little like design rep to get guys in space, and then utilize perimeter blocking? Do you see that?
Yeah, for sure. Um, for sure. It's the way that and here's what I'm also noticing too is Kirby has given Monken more and more free reign to run his offense and let him be himself, and his creativity in the run game, his creativity in the play action game, his creativity in the pass game presents such a huge problem for any defenses, let alone Ohio State's. I mean, they've got their work cut out for them.
The way I think too is, when you take Todd Monken and his experience, when he's been an offensive coordinator and the NFL, at the NFL level, he has the best. You can say one of the best team in college football, right? In regards to personnel, if you will. I don't see a situation where Todd Monken's sweating this too much.
No.
Now the question could be, what do we think, Todd Monk and Glenn Schumann are doing, because those receivers, at least Emeka Egbuka and Marvin Harrison are going to be Sunday guys. Paris Johnson, Sunday guy. Obviously, C.J. Stroud, Sunday guy that you're going to see. You should be able to see unless something crazy happens. I think that there's a little bit of pressure there, but when you look at Kirby Smart and you take all those guys collectively putting their heads together for this defense, I don't see a situation where we're not going to be prepared to handle anything and everything. Um, yeah, and I think the physicality, right? Whenever I love it, but every time that Big Ten and SEC talk, it's always about physicality. That always gets brought up, but it's so true that sometimes there's just different levels to it. And when you look at Georgia, I feel like Georgia sets the standard in terms of physicality around college football, if you will. Everybody looks at Michigan, right, and that's fair. But I still just think that Georgia's the most physical team in the country. And for 4 quarters, when you sit there and you have guys in the fourth quarter still just fearless, right, just going out and just hitting after hit after hit, and then the running backs, right, like whether it's Kenny Mack or whether it could be Dejon, Kendall Milton, in the third and fourth quarter, is their defense is their defense going to be wanting that contact, wanting that smoke, if you will? Because we know that these running backs can go 4 quarters and they'll put their head down and they'll run through you and it won't matter because they'll just keep doing it. And don't want to get the score. Don't let the score get ran up to a point where you're putting Branson Robinson in. Because listen, even if I was an elite tackler, I'd still kind of have reservations about that. Because
Yeah.
that's a big boy.
Yeah. And you know, Ohio State or nor Michigan, they will not know the true definition of physicality until they run into Georgia. And and guess what? That was the same thing that happened, to Michigan last year. Michigan thought, you know what, hey, we're just as physical. And you remember when we did when we did the comparisons, I mean, comparisons were almost exact as far as the defensive statistics, Stetson Bennett statistics versus their quarterbacks, the running backs, the receivers, and everything was almost directly in line until you put them on the field. And then all of a sudden, there was a huge separation. And Michigan just looked so bad. Man, they looked bad.
Well, there's another thing. There's one more thing, and then I want to talk more of like obviously the game projection here or the predictions. But I think the key here could be in-game adjustments. The reason why I say that is Georgia has shown a lot of in-game adjustments that have turned out to be crucial for Georgia's success this season. Ohio State, not so much. I haven't really saw a lot of adjustments. They just go out there, play their style of game, and you know what I mean, and just go there. I don't think you can sit there and in 30 days say, we're going to make the best adjustments according to this. Do you think it's even possible for Ohio State to make in-game adjustments at this point, considering their refusal almost to not really look at adjustments throughout the regular season?
I mean, I think that Ohio State is one of those teams that, hey, we're going to stick, with what got us here. In order for them to evolve and get better, they're going to have to make in-game adjustments. The problem is going to be is the game going to be too far out of hand that it doesn't really matter? That's where that's where the issue is going to take place. So if they're going to make in-game adjustments, especially getting all that pressure early from Georgia, but also too, Georgia has to be disciplined because, like you said, Ohio State is a screen team, so they'll run some screens to help with that pressure. So it's going to be a back and forth chess match, and it's going to be an exciting game, but it'll be more exciting, when we get to the fourth quarter and we're up by like 30, 40 points.
Juan, so the last time that Georgia played Ohio State was '93, I think it was. You were at Georgia, but you didn't play, right?
Yeah, it was my freshman year. I was a redshirt freshman, and they played in that bowl game, and Kirk Herbstreit was the quarterback.
Speaking of, I know you probably heard about Muschamp and Kurt. Did you hear about that?
No,
So, um, so Will Muschamp, I'm sure everybody here listening probably knows what I'm talking about by now. But Will Muschamp, he was talking at the podium for the week and everything, and he had mentioned uh, basically Herb Street at a luncheon. He said he saw Herb Street throw the ball or whatever. The way he threw that ball, he was like, "Yeah, we knew we were confident at that point." Kind of ribbing at Herbie, but then it seemed to me like he kind of was a little bit salty about that. So to me, I thought it was funny. You need to go check it out, one. I think you would laugh at it, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I'll have to take a look at it.
Yeah, no, so I thought it was funny, but yeah, I see Black Adonis, the bane of our existence, is in the chat, and I don't know how to feel about this. Um,
My man.
Welcome, Adonis. But yeah, so I want to obviously the spread on this game one is 6.5. Georgia being the favorite there, right? What is your score prediction for Saturday? And tell me how that score comes about.
I, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say 56-10. Um,
Woo!
I I
Ah,
I'm
damn.
I'm predicting I'm predicting us to come out in the very first 7 drives like we did against Oregon. We're gonna score touchdowns, and then I could say, probably a little bit later on, you can see Ohio State finally getting on the board. You there?
Yes. Sorry about
Oh,
that.
there you go. Okay. Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. So that's where I do. I think that we're going to come out there those first 7 drives. We're putting points on the board, and then after that, it's just it is what it is.
See, that's strange. I was not expecting that score. Rudes, I think you caught Rudes off guard too, but I think you see a score maybe like a 42-24. I think the receivers are too good. They're going to get away into the end zone at least once or twice. Um, whether it be someone blowing a coverage or whatever the case may be. I do think Georgia offensively will be too much for Ohio State's defense. Now the question is, right? I think from a physicality standpoint, does Kirby just do his death march? Do we see some death marches, right? And that might very well be the case. It really might. Now, like I said, I go 42-24. I think Georgia I think is extremely efficient. I think Stetson's going to be on it. Obviously, you have to make sure you don't turn the ball over. Don't have to turn. You can't turn the ball over and give that offense opportunities. You just can't. Um, Black Adonis. If we shut down CJ, do we have to worry about the backup? Let's hope not, because that's our kryptonite. That's our kryptonite, if
Yes,
you will.
yes, it is.
But ultimately though, I think the physicality is too much. I think they take shots early. They might. Their first shot they might score a touchdown. Right? I think you see some stalling out as well. I think you'll see different things like that. Stetson's got to play efficient ball. I think he's got to play some efficient football. So let us know in the comments. By the way, let us know what your predictions are for the game. We'll as we go along here. Um, Players of the game. One. Who is your player of the game?
Man, oh man, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with Darnell.
Ooh, I like it.
I'm gonna go with Darnell, and it's gonna be bigger than just catching passes and scoring touchdowns. His blocking and his leadership that he's gonna have, I think he wants it. I think he needs this. That's gonna be my player of the game. I think all around he's gonna be the best player on the field on Saturday.
Adonis said, "Yeah, I'm sure you did, Adonis. I'm sure." He says 38-28 Florida. I'm in Georgia. Surprise everybody.
That's great. That is
Sorry,
great.
sorry. You got to
I
feel.
miss,
Yeah.
I miss UGA. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's great.
I mean, I'm just gonna be honest. Florida had their chance and they could only get a moral victory field goal. So I'm not worried about
Yeah.
that.
Oh,
Sorry,
that's great.
Adonis.
That's
Hey,
great.
Florida State's playing in a bowl game today. Go watch them too.
Oh man.
I'm looking at this right here. I think Javon Bullard has to play a perfect game I, because just using a Emeka Egbuka, right? I think you have to respect Marvin Harrison Jr. So you're going to get Keeley. You might even see, Malachi Starks on him potentially. But Emeka Egbuka, that matchup with him and Javon Bullard, right? I think that could be a game changing type matchup. Like I said, it's ultimately how they use Javon Bullard. If they try to blitz him, you might see a lot. You might see him get home several times because CJ, like I said, CJ's his tendency not to run, right? Like he's done it in the past, and I feel like that can spark their offense, but he just doesn't do it. So try to force him out. Would be something that I think would be worth noting. Excuse me. But Javon Bullard, if he, I think he's going to do well in the screen game, things like that. Because like I said, they are a screen team. But when he gets put into situations where he might have to be stretched vertically, that could be interesting in itself. And I expect him to do enough to make that matter. Right? Get like third down situations. Do they test them? Right? Do you blitz? Um, Juan is going to hop off here, and I think we might wrap it here as well too. Um, there's a lot going on with right the Georgia Classic that Juan was talking about. Ruse asked, "Do we delete Florida comments?" I mean, maybe. I don't want to sit here and censor somebody, but I mean, you might just have to do that. Just kidding. Yes. Okay. Okay. Well, okay. As Juan comes back. Um, but no, Juan. Last word before your meeting, man. What obviously the game Saturday. What you got to finish off for the show for the weekend?
Say that again.
No, I was just saying. Obviously, we're going to wrap it up. Give our final words. What are your final words for everybody before we wrap this thing up and wait for Saturday?
Man, what a great thing to end off the new year with an absolute beatdown of Ohio State. Like just an absolute beatdown. And I just want to just tell everybody I told you so after we beat these boys down. Like you know, I'm excited for it. I'm excited for our boys, for Dog Nation. This was something that I predicted, way back when, us being undefeated, going and winning a national championship, and this is just going to be another added piece to it.
Yeah, Juan's been on this mission to destroy Ohio State personally, and I'm okay with that. Listen, my final thoughts are: first off, have a happy New Year. Obviously, coming back off the holidays, hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. By the way, um, enjoy the game because I plan on it. Um, I think Georgia will win, right? Whether we see, if we do win, obviously you'll have to wait and see who wins the TCU Michigan game, right? Juan, do you have a prediction there, real fast?
Oh,
TCU versus
oh
Michigan.
yeah. TCU gets absolutely dog stomped.
Okay, so Juan's expecting a rematch with us in Michigan. I'm kind
Yep.
of on board with that. I think they win. I think Michigan wins. I don't know about curb stomped or anything. Um, other than that, though, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Obviously, go cheer your dogs on 8 p.m. I think on ESPN, I believe, in the Peach Bowl in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. With that being said, hope everybody has a great day, and we'll catch y'all next time. Go dogs.
Go dogs.